What's up, you guys? Joe Dobby here. I am now a Deck Out Gaming affiliate. Use Joe Dobbs Deck Out at checkout. Deck Out Gaming has tons of singles for Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super, and Digimon TCG, as well as One Piece. They now buy list as well, so don't hesitate to reach out, and they got your back. Really high customer service ratings. Thank you guys, and yeah, let's get to the video. What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Dobby here, back at it again with another video. I've been on the Digimon TCG Nationals grind for 2024, and I am now back from LA, and I have great news. I placed 63rd in all the participants for this national tournament, and basically I guess this is 63rd in all of North America, so I'm very happy to say that I managed to finish and make it to day 2. They took top 64 for day 2, and I had a record of 7 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws going in. I'm super proud of myself for this achievement, but before we get started on the tournament recap and kind of like the deck that I played, I wanted to go over essentially people that I wanted to be super thankful for. First things first, I want to thank Huang Zero, both Huang and Zero, for all of their tips, coaching sessions, and advice, not only from the Digimon TCG perspective, but from the card game perspective as a whole, you know, working on fundamentals for card games and decision making, figuring out what the best decision trees are, and ultimately customizing that for the Digimon TCG. I'm so thankful for both of them. So thank you, Alex and Zero, for really making me the player that I am today, and helping me, basically getting me through this tournament, both mentally and just like from just getting good at the game. Special mentions, more people to thank, really. I want to thank Herman is your man. He's such a cool guy from my locals. He's also a very, very strict and good Digimon TCG judge. He rules everything to the T, and shout out to him, man, for all the play testing, for helping me acquire cards as well for the Anubis deck that I ended up playing. Spoiler alert, I played Anubis. But yeah, shout out to Herman, and shout out to everyone that went to Nats from Brick City. I'm talking about Tyler, Wayne, Bill, Sin, Alex, Gene, Aiden, Mike, everyone that really came to the event. I'm so happy that there were so many Canadians that showed up to nationals, and I'm so thankful for this group of people because they really gave me some awesome last minute testing, and they made the experience for, you know, Bandai Card Game Fest that much more special to me, being able to hang out with locals and my friends, really, that I don't get to see often because they're like all the way on the other side of town. But that said, we're gonna dive into the tournament recap right now. All right, you guys, so we had 10 grueling rounds of Digimon for day 1, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't find it grueling, exhausting, or tiring at all. I was playing purple, I'm in my element. This meta is Anubis, Metal Garurumon, some Beelstarmon, Red Hybrid, and a bunch of other decks like Sekon. Blue Flare showed up into the mix. Some people played Crossheart. There were so many players. I think we hit close to 1,000 players. I think we were at 978 players, and I managed to play 63rd overall. And that's just, to me, that's such an achievement. I really wanted to make top 32, but I lost to a very good player who we'll talk about in a little bit. I am so happy. The tournament went very well. There were issues regarding people who had 2-round buys in the very beginning, okay? So there were people who played round 1 and 2 that had 2-round buys. And it's not necessarily their fault, but I would say it's the TOs. The way they communicated it was basically like the day before, kind of like the morning of. They communicated it through microphone. I don't know if they had sent emails to people with 2-round buys to not participate. And the Best Coast pairings didn't really do a good job of reflecting people that had 2-round buys. I guess it had to be manually input from kind of like the TO desk. So there was a little bit of an issue there that lasted about 45 minutes to an hour, so we were delayed a little bit. We got round 1 and round 2 going on time. We were actually on schedule, just very slightly delayed because people were like flying in, showing up late, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't help that. And then there was the 1-hour wait resolving all these buys. And then ultimately we got to play our round 3. And let me tell you, shout out to Robo Sushi, the judge team, and the staff at the Card Fest. Like, I know y'all are understaffed for over like 5,000 people in one venue at a given time. I think you guys did a great job. I think that round 3 onwards for day 1, there were like no delays. It was you play, you submit, you play. You play, you submit, you play, you play, you submit, you play for the remaining 7 rounds. That was a really smooth experience for me, at least. I don't know, people might be a little bit whiny on that front, but I thought that it was a very quick experience round 3 onwards, and we finished on time. I got to get dinner and hang out with the boys and the friends and had a good evening after that. That said, Bandai Card Game Fest, this is the first time they did something of this scale. They had special guests. They had a lot of reveals, future reveals for the card games that Bandai has. They did a lot of Union Arena demo deck testing, which could have run a little bit better for the players. For spectators, for people that, you know, are new to Bandai Fest, literally like passers-by who wanted to pay like $10 to join the event and just hang out and watch all the booths, exhibits, and all that. It must have been a great experience for them, but as a player, it was really hard to slot in a time to play Union Arena because you were forced to kind of do the demo before you could even get your demo deck. So as a player, there was no shot you were gonna get to do that demo, and they did not want to give you demo decks for that. So that's something that needs to be worked on. If you're a tournament competitor, there should be ways that we're able to access and enjoy the exhibit without running out of spots. And there should be, like, I guess, more ways for spectators and competitors to kind of have that degree of separation, so there's enough supply for everyone to go around. But I love the Digimon booth. It was amazing. The little scavenger hunt, the prize at the end wasn't really that good, but the individual prizes at each scavenger hunt post was really cute. I thought it was very simple and very nice, and there were a lot of great places to take photos, and it was just an overall great experience. So now we're gonna go into the tournament recap. Round 1. So I had to fight my way through 10 rounds while some people who had their invites started at round 3. Good for y'all. It was well-deserved. Obviously, you earned your invite, but I needed to earn my way into day 2 by fighting my way through the first 2 rounds. First round, Yellow Hybrid. Wow. So Yellow Hybrid was a very interesting matchup. I haven't had too much practice against it, but it played like Seccon, felt like Seccon, except it could swing you down and attack you if you didn't set up properly. Now, luckily, I don't think this Yellow Hybrid player ran Shadow Seraphimon. Why would you? You're Yellow Hybrid, I guess. But because of that, I was able to outmaneuver my opponent, especially because I was able to out Venusmon very easy through Leviamon and through Spadamon. So in my list, I run Spadamon in the Anubis deck. It allowed me to de-digivolve Venusmon using Anubismon's main effect, because I only really need to wait a turn and I can stay in raising for the turn when you get into Venusmon. So when I raise, I do the thing and I spat a de-digivolve through Anubismon's main effect, playing the Merva, tucking the Merva, all that stuff. So it ended up being quite a good matchup for me. Unfortunately, I didn't catch that till game 2, and I ended up losing game 1 through a miscalculation of decisions. So I had the decision to play for lethal, or the decision to kind of wait a turn and solidify my win. Unfortunately, waiting a turn to solidify my win, there was a card I did not anticipate for that my opponent played, and that ultimately shattered game 1 for me. Game 2 was a swift victory. There were a lot of cards that I was able to see, especially that was where Spadamon played a key role, and after that it was just smooth sailing. Unfortunately for game 3, we only really had like 5 minutes left in the round, and it was deemed a draw shortly after. So shout out Yellow Hybrid, good player, had a lot of fun. Round 2, I played Omnimon Alter B. You heard it right. This guy came here to vibe out and play his favorite deck. And Alter B is a rough matchup to play going into Anubis. Anubis is well suited for the matchup because I'm able to... With Alter B, you need 2 Digimon on board, and Anubis generally pops any level 5 or lower, and without a memory setter, without ways to actually play things, you need the perfect amount of cards in your hand, the right cards in your hand as an Alter B player to really outpace and handle Anubismon. And yeah, he wasn't able to see that both games, and it was a swift 2-0. But shout out to him for playing that deck. It was really fun. Next, for round 3, it was my first Anubismon mirror. And my opponent, I believe this was my opponent that said he had played like 3 or 2 SecCon in a row or something like that, and his brain was busted. But I am pretty well versed into this mirror match. Shout out to Alex, Huang Zero, and Herman for testing this mirror into me and getting it down. I was able to refine my build to kind of be a hybrid of accommodating for the mirror match, but also accommodating for basically everything else. So my deck was pretty much teched out to handle anything that it needed to handle. I was able to 2-0 my opponent on the sheer, I guess, the knowledge that I had versus the mirror in terms of whether you stay in raising and become Anubis, or you preemptively go into Anubis early and make sure you don't give enough memory to remove you. These are all these decision trees, when to play Wisdom, which rookie to go into, all of that. The mirror is a game of micro decisions that ultimately lead up to the building of your own momentum to close out. And needless to say, of the 4 mirrors that I had played, I actually only drew once and lost 0. So that was a very good feat for me. Round 4 was Beal Starmon, and I was not familiar with this matchup at all. I didn't get any testing against Beal Starmon. And yeah, there were cards like Javolt Schwarmer that ultimately wiped out my blockers with Retail, and I got outpaced, outsped, because the low end of Beelstar, my opponent was playing like the Garurumon low end, the Were Garurumon for that matter, which unsuspends and can protect itself from dying. So it was very easy for them to chip at my security early, and when I would hit a bomb in security, that would set me back even more, and I got O2'd by Beelstarmon there. Next was Anubismon again, and same story. I think my knowledge and my lack of fatigue, I was very energized. I was very motivated today, and very energized, and had a very positive mental and outlook throughout the entire tournament. And I think that played a role into every mirror match. I actually enjoyed this mirror. I thought the mirror was very engaging, very challenging, and it really tested one's ability to anticipate plays and make micro decisions that ultimately lead up to the macro, which is your victory. So yeah, 2-0 there, very good. And round 6 was Blue Flare. I was worried about Blue Flare having text for Anubis, but my opponent had to cut text for Anubis to like Forbidden Trident or anything that really bounced or bottom decked Psychmons, because they wanted to just be very aggressive and rush you down, and they wanted to make the deck as consistent as possible. Though unfortunately, I play like enough Psychmon to cycle and keep seeing Psychmon. So every time I got into Anubis, I was able to ensure that I ended my turn on a Psychmon. And my opponent knew that he had no outs to Psychmon. I can see it game 1 that when the Psychmon came out, I kind of read his body language, thinking like, I can't out that. And that was like a pretty long 15-minute, 20-minute game 1. So I felt like we saw all the cards, and if you didn't see your out, you probably don't play an out. From then on, both game 1 and 2, I made sure that I ended my Anubis turn on a Psychmon. I cycled as much as I could until I saw a Psychmon before even going into the combo at times, and that merely set me up for success. There were times where Sorai could eventually do nothing because I was able to just evo over the things that have no sources and swing, because all my things had retaliation and they ended up getting rushed, for example. So very good stuff. Next was Beelzemon. Beelzemon was really tricky. Shout out to the Beelzemon player. You know what you're doing. You're very awesome. My opponent took a little bit longer than usual to make decisions with Beelzemon. I guess into Anubis, there's probably a lot of things you need to consider. But yeah, my opponent could not find X antibody in time, and wasn't able to swing for game and trash all my security, because by the time all my security would have been trashed, I had all my blockers, and he tried to go for lethal, didn't realize that when he swung with the Impmon, he forgot to use Rival's Barrage and grab Beal's X antibody from trash. So he couldn't go into Beal's X, etc. And next thing you know, like that was pretty much, I couldn't let him take that back, obviously. And game 1 ended up being in my favor because he had like less than 5 cards left in deck, and I just set up blockers, made sure that, you know, I was able to defend myself multiple times, having 2 Mervamon out, so you could only really out one of them, etc. And that was like oh dude, that game was like, game 1 was like half an hour. And then game 2, there was a ruling issue that I had with Yaman. That was really my bad, but it took a while to get a head judge over here to kind of explain the warp evo into Yammon, etc., and whether Yammon triggers or not. But ultimately, I was wrong on that, so my bad. But eventually, it ended up we ended up going into time at game 2, and because it was 1-0 for me into the set so far, I ended up taking the win there. Next, round 8 was Beal Starmon. So another Beal Starmon. I was a little bit worried, but I took my learning from the loss the day of, saw that my opponent did not play outs to Psychmon this time. There were really no ways. They didn't play like Where Garurumon X antibody that bounces 4s, the blue one that could go over anywhere Garurumon, right? I thought that was a sweet tech in Beelstar, but if you're not running it in Beelstar, then you can't really out Psychmon sometimes. And because you can't out Psychmons, I was able to just continue to cycle Psychmon, and my opponent's security wasn't doing him any favors, and it was 2-0 in favor of me versus Beelstar. And round 9 and 10 were both Anubismons. Round 9, I think my opponent was a little bit fatigued into this round with Anubis. It was a local guy, shout out to Jaden. Didn't want to face anyone local, but I ended up doing so. Very good player, actually. Do not underestimate this guy. He's actually crazy. I had to make sure that all of my plays were top notch. I had to end my turn making his turns harder to maneuver, and luckily I ended up getting the 2-0 there. And round 10, I was facing a really cool guy, I think from Sacramento. We ended up drawing because game 1 he won. No, game 1 I actually took. Game 1 I successfully took. I thought it was going to be smooth sailing, but game 2 I bricked, and my opponent didn't necessarily see pieces early, but he saw them before I did. So we were game 2 was like slamming Leviamon, and then they slam Leviamon, and then they slam Leviamon, and then they find something, and I don't find anything. And it took game 2, and then we ended up drawing because there were only like 3 minutes left in a game 3. I really wanted to close out, but unfortunately I ended up with a second draw for the day, which probably bumped my rank down from what could have been like top 48 or top 40 to 63rd, but I was just thankful to be in top 64. Now, day 2 was only one round because obviously I had lost. Shout out to Dominic, aka Quill from Discord. He was my opponent and was an absolutely amazing player. I was playing into his plays, not knowing it game 1. And it's awesome because I started to see this and I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm actually cornering myself responding to your plays, you know, like playing Wisdom, going into Ogre, passing me at, 1 or whatever. And then I respond passing him to 2, and then he responds passing me to 1. Like the math just wasn't there for me, and he manipulated the memory gauge very well in the mirror. And one of the things that I usually do in the mirror is sit back. I wait for their play. Now, the problem with that is when your opponent basically has everything they need to see early on, it gets harder if you don't have like your out. If I don't see DeathX or Leviamon when I come out after they've done their thing, I don't really have a response to the board state. So that became a very, very big issue for me, and it became really hard to come back game 1. Now game 2, I took that learning, immediately applied it, and it was a much harder game for Dominic, I'd say, to really kind of like out, but Biting Crush was the key card there. Because I hit Biting Crush, I think I hit Biting Crush in security, he was able to really have a huge swing turn, trashing Leviamon, etc. I believe you activate Biting Crush's full effect, allowing it to be placed in the delay area, and it was checkmate there. I don't remember actually if I hit it in security or he hard played it, but at the end it was checkmate because Biting Crush was on the field. He had an Anubis in raising, and my board was exposed for absolute removal. If I did the Anubis combo first, Biting Crush would trigger, Leviamon would basically take me out. The problem with that is if I don't and I wait, I have an exposed Anubis on the board, which the Anubis that Dominic had in raising could easily respond to, making that a horrible experience. But yeah, overall, that was an absolutely great matchup, and I'm glad that he enjoyed it. He said that the game was engaging and that he enjoyed it, so lucky that I was able to provide him with a challenge. And unfortunately he didn't make it past top 32 if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, I'm very proud to say that I'm 63rd in all of North America. We're gonna dive into the deck now. All right, you guys, so this is the deck that I had played at Nats. There's a few choices here that a lot of people saw questionable, but I wanted to make sure that I could play the game. The biggest philosophy here in this Anubis build was taken from Alex, actually. I asked him why we're kind of so committed and making the deck super consistent in floodgate removal. And the answer was simple. I want to make sure that I want to be able to play the game. So that's what Alex said, and I made sure my build reflected that, and it came absolutely clutch. There were times where my opponent thought I had used all my Maycrackmon, and then they see another one. They didn't expect that. There were situations where they thought that they saw my Ruin mode in trash, and then I play another one, and they didn't expect that either. So I was able to lock my opponent out 4 turns at one point, going into Shine Greymon Ruin mode twice, and ultimately I was able to push for game that way. But let's talk about the text real quick. So Spotamon over here, when it's played through Mervamon, it can be tucked under Mervamon to D-Digivolve 1. Because everything happens simultaneously, I can trigger the D-Digivolve 1 before the Anubis effect to delete a level 5 or lower. So I was able to take out a lot of level 6s, a lot of my opponent's Anubismon and Mervamon to basically take the game and swing it to basically like an unrecoverable board state. Now, one Gazimon, I didn't see Gazimon take too much prio and have too much of an effect, but it did work out in the mirror and in Beelstarmon when I needed to see it. They just didn't have an out to it, you know? And once I had Gazimon and Psychmon out together, it made it that much more difficult because nobody really runs ways to remove 2 floodgates at once. So they either don't gain memory and can play Digimon with effects, or the other way around, making sure that, you know, with whatever it is they're doing, they're that much more to passing turn at an undesirable amount of memory. Ignitemon staple, Goblimon staple, Sabergermon, people had debates about Sabergermon's viability and importance into the deck. Some people played 2, some people played 1, some people played 0, and I played 3. This actually came in really clutch because when I had an opportunity to drop 2 Sabergermon in an Anubis mirror, I was able to not only use Anubismon to pop the lower level Digimon, because I'd be popping 2 level 5 or lower with the Anubismon effect from the full combo. I could then have 2 Sabergermon to raid into Anubis and Mervamon, making it significantly difficult. That's like a complete board wipe, right? And then they would have to rebuild in the back, and that would allow me to use Anubismon's effect yet again. And if I didn't want them to raise their Digimon, I could actually double raid into Anubis, Merva, and then end my turn going into Ruin mode on Mervamon. So next turn with the Shine Greymon Ruin mode, if they have a level 4 in raising, they're basically unable to raise that. So not only are they able to respond next turn from that board wipe, but I'm able to put my Mervamon back in trash and delay them yet another turn with Ruin mode's deletion effect, because it's negative 5k when digivolving and on deletion, and then Anubismon is a main effect, so I could do that all again. And now I can switch it up, so instead of playing 2 Sabergermon, I end my turn on a Psychmon, and now it's like you're down 2 turns. Now that you've raised, you have to out Psychmon before you get into Anubis, and those 2 things really made the difference into the matchup. And in addition to that, having 3 Maycrackmon was an absolutely big deal, because if I was able to use Maycrackmon to trash a Maycrackmon or trash a Ruin mode, depending on the matchup, or depending if I had a Ruin mode in my hand, or if I had 2 in my hand, or 2 Maycrack, etc., I could pop 2 Psychmon, 2 Gazimon, or 1 of each at the same time. And a lot of times that's come in very clutch, actually, because I want to be in control of when my Psychmon dies. So as a result, I was able to out their Psychmon, so then I could get my Psychmon to swing and trigger all my effects, which was a huge deal into the mirror. 3 Mervamon, I know people play 4 just to see it consistently, and sometimes people hard play it from hand, but I didn't really hard play it from hand as often. There were situations where, you know, I had Psychmon out and my opponent would use Anubismon to play something to out my Psychmon. Like they do Maycrackmon at full cost, so I'd be like at 6-7 memory, and then that's when I would play Mervamon hard played. But generally, I didn't really need to do that. The situation was most board states were very accommodating of me just going full combo. For Anubismon, naturally, Leviamon I had 3 originally, dropped it down to 2. I did miss it at times, but I'm happy that I stuck with 2 because it allowed me to play Pummelwhack. Pummelwhack came in very clutch in its ability to unbrick my hand. In addition to that, it allows me to delete my opponent's floodgates from security if I have no way to delete it just yet and they hit it. But for the most part, it's quite a good card overall. Next, 3 copies of the Purple Boost. I was really struggling the last few weeks prior to Nationals. Do I play 2 boosts and throw a Death X? Do I play 2 boosts and throw a Ghazi? Do I play 2 boosts and throw a Maycrack? You know, but ultimately I felt that I needed to see 3 memory boosts because I needed the combination of wisdom, multiple wisdom trainings, and purple memory boosts in situations where I'm locked out of the game and I need to like stay in raising for a little bit. So because I played the 3 boosts, I think it helped very well. Wisdom training was like the best card in the deck. Like it's even better. Like it's the best card in the deck next to the actual card that wins you the game, which is Anubismon, because it gets you to Anubismon. And yeah, it's an absolutely amazing card. And I wish I could get 2 playsets, but they didn't sell singles at Nats. So sad. Anyways, that is the deck profile. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so happy that I was able to score this, make it this far into the tournament as well. And I'm just looking forward to playing more Digimon in the coming weeks, months, and years. So thank you guys so much, and peace. Hope you liked the video.